Scott Coker, here we
Yes.
are, St. Louis, Missouri. It is June 18th, 2015. It's a very special day because 1 year ago, on June 18th, 2014, it was announced that you were now taking over Bellator. Bjorn Rebney and Tim Danaher, the two gentlemen who had been running the organization, essentially had been relieved of their command, and you had taken over. I know this well because obviously it was an important day, but you had given the greatest conference call ever, saying virtually nothing to the media. And you said in due time, we would learn more.
Right.
So now we have a year under our belts. There's a lot to get to, a lot to talk about here on the eve of Kimbo versus Shamrock. Before we start about Bellator and where it's headed and where it's been and MMA generally, let me ask just a basic question. If Viacom had never come calling, what would you be doing right now, June 18th, 2015?
I would be in the fight business in some shape or form. And really, when I was exiting the employment agreement at Zuffa, I really thought about what do I want to do now? And I had another opportunity, and I was kind of heading in that direction. So I was headed in a different direction, still staying in the fight business. What that was going to look like, it was more like a development deal. And so we weren't exactly sure whether it was going to be, are we going to go and create a big league? Is it going to be kind of a feeder league, or but I want to get back in the fight business, and something I've done for a long time, and I really enjoy it, and so I thought I'd head back in that direction. But what happened was it was Kevin Kay that said come down and meet with me, and so I went down to LA, I met with him, and we started talking, and I really got a really good vibe from Kevin, and I said this guy gets it, and he wants to do what I want to do basically, and that's be in the fight business, throw some good fights, and they just talked about what their vision was, and I said I could really help this guy. I think I have the experience, the knowledge, and the background of promotion in the promotion business, and the 30 years of experience I could bring to Viacom and Spike TV and Bellator and really help their brand. And so I thought about it for a long time. This was something that wasn't like we had a meeting, and then the next day I really thought about it for a couple months, because I knew that once I attached myself to this train, it's going to start moving at 100 miles an hour. It's not going to be the slow process or like a development deal. And so that's really what happened. That it was really the meeting with Kevin that really changed my mind, and I'm glad I did it because it's been a lot of fun. I think that we're making some great headway, and it's hopefully you guys can see the difference.
We see some differences, certainly. Some good, some bad. We'll talk about those in just a minute. But I guess what I want to know is they didn't bring you in by accident, right? You were there to solve a problem. They had a property on their hands, and there was a lot they liked about it. But if they liked everything about it, you wouldn't be here. So what I'm wondering is, when they brought you in, what were the objectives generally, and what were the year one objectives? What did they say that a year from now, we need to be seeing these kinds of things?
You know what? It wasn't that was not the conversation. The conversation was more what do you want to do? How do you see this thing develop in the next year? And why don't you create the vision for the next 2, 3, 4 years, and let us know what you want to do. And that's really what happened.
But there were no performance benchmarks?
When you say performance, you mean specifically like this many dollars, this many sponsorship dollars?
Well, I mean, they're in the television business. They want ratings. They're in the money-making business. They want cash. So I guess what I'm wondering is, to what extent did you meet those objectives within a year? I mean, it's a long-term process, but I guess towards that end.
I mean, I'm sure that internally they had ratings goals, and internally they had some sponsorship goals, and I think that November 14th or whatever day the Tito fight was, we hit that 2 million mark. That was really a milestone, and it showed that look, we can throw big fights, have a big look and a big feel, and have 2 million people view in on Spike on that fight. So, it was a big success, and they that night, including some of my staff, because some of the staff here had never seen like a big event, with the screens and the production, and so. Even they were really taken back by the level of commitment that Viacom and Spike and the entertainment value that we're going to bring to Bellator. And so that was kind of like the footprint of the very first show. Then you saw it with Mohegan Sun with the British Invasion. And then there's a show tomorrow night. And then next year we're going to do, more tentpoles than we did this year.
What was wrong with Bellator when you got there?
I don't think.
You can't say nothing. There had to be a lot wrong.
You know what? I tell you, this is my feeling. I came into a situation where there's, I remember my first meeting with the staff, right? There's 40 people in this room, and I knew one person. And so I basically was saying, what does everybody do, right? How does this all work, right? And, so we just kind of eventually found the staff that we really liked. And then I brought in some of my old team that I know that do a very good job. We removed the offices from Orange County, which seems so separated from the parent company, which is in Santa Monica, right, or New York. So we kind of brought everybody to Santa Monica. Half the team moved up to the Bay Area, and we have an office there now. And so, so I think that we fixed some of the staffing issues. And when I used to watch Bellator before, it just seemed, like they would throw tournaments to throw tournaments. That's what it felt like to me. And so to me, it's like, look, you want to throw a tournament? It should be a big tournament. It should be like we threw the Grand Prix heavyweight finals, right? It's probably one of the, the milestones of my career. And to have Fedor and Alistair Overeem and Fabricio Verdum, who now is a champ, and we had some of the greatest fighters in the history of the sport, fighting in this tournament. So you want to throw a tournament? That's what a tournament should look like. And so we got off of that tournament, wagon, and kind of went to super fight model, which is what we're used to. And I don't think you should just throw fighters into a tournament just because you need to fill the tournament. Like there's some fighters that I saw in there that that I just didn't understand why they would put some of the fighters in that they did. And I think it's because there was a shortage of great athletes, and I really felt that's what the tournament, sometimes the tournament doesn't work, is because who's fighting, and really if he wins, is it what is the purpose? And then when I watch it, sometimes it just feels small. It felt small to me. We need to make it big. Listen, Strikeforce had a big feel to it. I'm not sure if you agree or not, but I felt it did.
Some of the shows certainly did.
Yeah, you walk into a stadium, and our big fights I'm talking about, our championship fights had a big feel to it, and so we still hold the record for the most paid attendance in the state of California, or U.S. actually. So, it's something that I think we needed to grow it, and you need to go to bigger venues, and you need to take the risk, and you need to really be an effective promoter, not just on TV, but at the live gate. And that was something I felt they totally didn't understand, is that the live gate promotion, growing the gate, growing the business. Because when you walk into an arena and you have a good crowd and they're passionate, they're into it, it's going to affect everything, even the fighters' performances, right? I think that they get more motivated and charged by it. So that's something that I think that we've improved on.
One of the interesting things about Bellator under your reign is it's a lot of questions about where we're headed, but I think more to the point, it's where have we been? In other words, is this going to be Strikeforce 2.0? And the reason why I ask that is not that when you look at the current landscape, you mentioned Verdum's the champion, mm-hmm. Cormier, under different circumstances, is a bit of a champion, but certainly it's been proven that the Strikeforce roster was pretty robust. Mm-hmm. But a lot of fans say, look, for all of Strikeforce's great fights, it got sold. Mm-hmm. Zuffa bought it. There must have been an issue there with its worth to the people who had money invested. And so I guess what I'm wondering is, to what extent we're rehashing the debate about whether or not Strikeforce was successful here. Do you believe that Bellator will be another version of that, or do you believe you have to tweak things you did from a business standpoint to make it work under this new rubric, this new regime?
Right. Well, I mean, to me, if anybody's, I think, and from your standpoint, because you don't really understand what the business model of Strikeforce was, how much it was doing, and what it sold for.
So tell me.
Well, that's a long time ago, right? That's something that was, part of my past, and I'm looking to the future now. So, but the fighters that we've built from the ground up, right? Daniel Cormier, Luke Rockhold, Tyron Woodley. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on, right? And even before that, there's Gina Carano, and it's the history of the martial arts that we have developed and cultivated and grown from the ground up. I think is second to none, right? Because we can take it from the ground up and build them. And then we bought Fedor, his contract, Dan Henderson, and then that's really how we put the roster together, was build them from the ground up, buy some from the top down, and then now you have a complete roster. So I disagree with anybody that says Strikeforce was a success. The issue with Strikeforce was that we had partners that didn't understand the MMA fight game. And when you have partners, it's like being married, right? If you're in a relationship and your wife wants out, what are you going to do? It's just it is what it is. It unfolded how it unfolded, but it was a business decision purely on the company's part as a whole. So that's all in the past. So,
but I guess you feel like you don't agree with the characterizations about why what happened to Strikeforce happened. In other words, you think that the prevailing media narrative is somehow wrong.
Well, I haven't even heard the media narrative, so you're the first person actually to bring it up.
Really?
Yeah. So
I think here's what I would say about it. For better or worse, true or false, the media narrative is that, again, that the roster was great, the shows were good, but it sold because it just didn't, from a revenue standpoint, generate what it was supposed to.
I mean, think about how young that company was. I mean, if you think about in 2006, from 2007, 2008 is when I brought those partners in, right? And this is exactly how they see it, because Silicon Valley Sports Entertainment is an investment company, right? So they just look at it like we paid in this, right? We bought in at this. 18 months later, X is what we get. This is a great deal, Coker. Why don't you see that? And I'm like, well, because it's something that I love to do. You guys look at it differently than we do. So that's really what it came down to,
Yes.
But it has nothing to do with, the success or the economics of what it was. This is a young company. They were into this business for 18 months. Before that, I owned the whole thing. So from 06, 07, 08, 09, 08, the summer of 08, they approached me and said, hey, we want to buy in, right? And then I said, let me think about it. And we made a deal because when Pro Elite started going down, I said, okay, I'll make a deal with you because I want to go buy Pro Elite, and now let's go get some other assets and build this company. And really, it was just a economic formula for them. They buy and flip companies all day long. And so if anything, my error really was, I should have found a different partner that had a longer term vision, right? And that's it. Forget the X's and the O's and this costs. That has nothing to do with it. It just has to do with these guys buy and flip companies, and that's what they do.
Is that what you have with Viacom? Do you have somebody who has the long-term vision and the commitment that you on par with what you are aiming for?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. This is a much different animal because they are a content. This is a content for their network, and this is a vertically integrated company to the point where I know this company is never going to sell. They're never going to need to sell it, and it's a great program for them.
Never going to sell?
Why would they?
If it doesn't produce the kind of ratings they want, if it doesn't turn out the live gate what they want, why would they keep it for charitable purposes?
Well, I think that the one thing you have to understand is there's a much bigger business than just what you see here today. There's international deals in the seven figures all over the world. There's a sponsorship now with light beer from Miller. There's our gates are growing. I mean, this is a growing business for them. They have a lot of hope for this. So, it's up to us to produce those results. But at the end of the day, it's different because X plus Y doesn't equal Z here because now it's a content provider for them, right? It's content, and you're building intellectual property now, right? Now you're building a library that has value, and you're building digital assets that have value. So it's much different than me being a content provider, owning a league, and saying, hey, Viacom, can you come air this for me? Like we did with Showtime. Because you were basically at mercy of the network, right? Well, now the network owns the company. And I think you see the commitment behind it. And as far as them bouncing or jumping, I'm not even worried about it. If I was worried about that, I would have never even came on board.
So like that security is partly what enticed you to be committed to the project.
Yeah, because they have a long-term plan for this company. And I'm telling you, if you sat down with Kevin Kay, you would get it. If you sat down with Jason Jordan, our COO, you would get it. This is, and I'm talking about from the top down. I'm not just talking about the Spike level. We're dealing with the Viacom level too. So this is something that, think about it, it has international appeal, right? It has international sponsorship appeal. It has international Touring appeal. They just bought Channel 5 in
Right.
the UK, so they started Spike UK there. We'll probably be in London sometime next year promoting fights, right? So there's a lot of exciting things. I mean, I was in Mexico City supporting the Fox Sports Latin America deal we have, going to Israel, Dubai, we'll be traveling to Macau. I mean, we have deals all over the planet. So I feel very good about where this company is, in 1 year that, since I took over.
So let's talk about MMA generally, because then I want to dive directly into Bellator. What would you say about MMA today? Like, when people ask me, what was it like versus the peak era of 2008 or 2009, it's a much different animal, but I'm not sure what to say, because certainly I think we can all agree the UFC is healthy, and you're talking about the security behind what you have in your operation, but there's the market has completely changed. Every time the reigning number 2 to the UFC dies off, so Strikeforce, they get a bigger and bigger market share. Now, I'm not here to get into monopolization talks, but I guess what I just mean is, to what extent is there even such a thing as a viable number 2 anymore? Number 2 promotion?
Of course. I mean, Strikeforce was on its way to do that, and the only difference here is that this company is not for sale, and it won't be for sale, and that's going to be the big difference. Is that I think in any healthy industry there has to be 2 players. That's how I feel. You just can't have intramural games all the time, and the fighters. You think the fighters want one league? There's no way. I'm telling you right now. There's no way the fighter wants that. The fighter wants to have an option, and they want to make money. And we're going to be here to provide, a healthy living for a lot of these athletes. And there's a lot of athletes that are, that want to fight there. There's a lot of athletes that want to fight here. And believe me, the phone's been ringing. It's not like this is a one-way street.
Sure, but you would agree that things are different since the peak era of Strikeforce.
Well,
it's just much harder to make headway.
I will tell you this. Well, after I sold Strikeforce, I think the industry went like this. And I'll tell you why. Because I have a son who's 27 now. And he used to always come over and watch MMA with me, right? And then one day, I don't know, maybe a couple years ago, I said, "Hey, come over, watch a fight." He said, "Me and my friends are all done with it. We don't care about MMA anymore." I said, "Really?" I go, "Why?" He says, "Oh, we're on to this, or we're on to, And that youth generation, I think, has kind of drifted away, because a lot of the fighters that they grew up with are all gone now, right? That generation, when he's 16, 17, 18, they're all gone, except for Tito. He's like the last survivor here, right? So they're all gone. And so it's a new generation of fighters, right? And, Brock Lesnar's gone, right? So the industry kind of went like this. And I'm sure you saw it. I felt it.
Sure.
And then, you know what? It's like when you have one league and there's not that, hey, what if Fedor fought this guy? What if, that interest of the juggling of the 2 leagues went away, then I think that, the interest just kind of went down. And I think it showed. The ratings, pay-per-views, it's just kind of plateaued off. And so now it's like the cycle, right? The cycle. WWE went through it. I'm sure the NFL's gone through it, or any other industry has gone through it. And that, what I mean by that is, look, there's going to be peaks and there's going to be valleys, right? And you have to ride out the peaks and the valleys, and eventually have a sustainable business. You're going to have to weather the storm through the good and the bad. And obviously UFC's going to be able to do it. Bellator's going to be able to do it. And it's nothing that, when I think about MMA, I think about young kids liking it, right? But think about this. In 93, that guy that was 20 years old watching it, he's 40-something years old now, right? Or close to 50. So the age of people watching MMA is getting older. And we got to get the young kids back. And that's why we're doing these tentpole events the way we're doing it. We're casting a bigger net, because, let me tell you, I was talking to my friend in San Jose yesterday. He said, the people at his office are talking about this fight. The girls are talking about this fight. It's like the water cooler talk of that office. And that's because you have Kimbo Slice, and you have one of the most recognizable names in MMA, which is Shamrock. And you put that fight together, you put those names together, it's going to cross over into more than just the hardcore fans or just a niche fan audience that that is there all the time. And that's what we want to do. We want to cast a little bit bigger net. It's right out of the Japanese playbook. When I was in Japan, they always said to me, look, we want to have Ernesto fight Peter Arts. We want to have one fight that everybody wants to watch. The whole community, the whole country will want to watch. We want grandmas to watch. We want grandfathers to watch. We want aunts and uncles and the whole family to sit down and watch it. And that's when they would do their fun fights that they put together, with whether it was Bob Sapp or Hoist Gracie fighting this guy, or it was a fight that the entire country would tune in. And so that's kind of been the motto, right? Is to cast something a little bit bigger than just a hardcore audience. But in saying that, we also have the fights on the TV side that we can build these next stars. Once we have the eyeballs on them, we can build the next stars coming up. When those 2 million people, or hopefully 3 million people, watch Bellator, they'll have the next groundswell of talent coming up.
But certainly you can say that on the one hand, there's been a shift in the regional or the MMA polarity. Japan's not the power that it once was, but maybe some of the other Asian countries are. Certainly Russia appears to be poised for a move. Brazil had a big explosion. But is MMA, I don't know, is it as healthy as it was? Is it as secure, not just maybe at the Bellator at UFC level, but the level that feeds into it? Is there enough going on there, and are the people involved there, the stakeholders, are they getting what they need out of it?
You know what? That's a good question, and I think that when I look at Japan right now, I know that Saki Ibarra is making some moves, right? In fact, he's going to be at our show. You should talk to him. You should ask him.
I'll try.
He's going to be here. But you know what? I think Godzilla's waking up in Japan. Because the one thing I know about growing up in an Asian country, doing work for K1 for 8-9 years, they're not looking for an American company to come in there, or an international company to come in there and be their fight promoter. They want a Japanese fight organization. That I know for sure. And so as Saki Ibarra builds, he gets back, which I think he will. I think he'll be another force to be reckoned with. I think that he's going to be a great promoter. He's going to produce events unlike anything we've ever seen. And, he'll be successful. And you know what? We will help him. And I know other people will help him as well. So, getting some of our talent, getting some talent from, maybe ONE FC or KSW or whatever, then he'll have a pool of fighters. And, if he wants to do a big show, hey, we will support him and help him out.
Okay, so let's talk about Bellator a little bit.
Okay.
The first year, how would you characterize your first year in the organization? What's a good word for it? I'd say growth. At the end of the day, we turned this company. I think our signature stamp was really the tentpole events, right? Because that's kind of getting back to, like you said, Strikeforce 2.0. But hey, people enjoyed it. We have always been really good live event promoters, and what I mean by that is, in 2006 when I started in MMA, we did a fight with Shamrock. Had 18,000. Okay, it was the first show in California, whatever. The second fight, I don't know if you remember this, but the second fight was Alistair Overeem fighting Vitor Belfort. The Pride had sent over. Yes.
But there's no TV.
Right.
No TV, I had no sponsorship. I didn't even know what that, I knew what it was. I'm joking, but we were so busy selling tickets and promoting. We're a live event promoter, right? That's why the Viacom match with us is such a perfect fit, because the live event part we have down pretty well. We know how to sell tickets. We know how to, to grow a ticketing business. We just hired a VP from the San Jose Sharks of marketing and ticket sales, right? And he's here to build out our ticketing programs. So I think that's really our strong suit. And then the whole first year of Strikeforce, we didn't have any TV deal, right? It wasn't until the second year we had a small TV deal in the second year, and then eventually we bought Pro Elite, and then it took off. But packing seats 10,000 plus, that's a hard thing to do. Even 8,000 plus, that's a hard thing to do. Pay tickets, and then if you think about what Viacom brings to the table and their media opportunities and their media platforms, you put that together with a great live promotion company with great fighters, which we have great fighters in this league. I came into a situation, they had great fighters already, and we've added some great talent in this mix. And I say great talent and also colorful characters, right? And then we've started building the groundswell of new athletes like the Picos and the Roos, which I think will be the stars of our future. And you put that all together, you start doing tentpole events, you get a title sponsor like Griffin Miller, you had 20, 25 countries now that are airing it more than before. So now we're in 140 countries instead of 120. Revenues are going up. gates are going up, eyeballs are going up. I mean, to me, it's a good thing. And you know what? I look at it differently. It's not us against the UFC. This is an industry.
Well, they see it the other way, I'm sure.
I can't comment on that. But you know what? Listen, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, do you think MMA is as healthy as Major League Baseball or football? You think MMA could sell out San Jose Arena 3 times a week?
No.
Like a hockey stadium?
Certainly not.
It's not as healthy as that. Let me tell you. They're doing their part. We're going to do our part. Saki Yabara will do his part in Japan. People are doing their part all over the world to help keep this industry healthy. And it's going to need to be a team effort. I don't look at this as us against them and them against. That's not the right way to look at it. This is an industry that still needs to be helped and grown, because it's not football, it's not baseball, it's not even kids soccer, to be honest, right? So, I heard yesterday that the World Cup soccer female did 3 million views on Fox.
More than 4.
Think about that. We got a ways to go. So my point is, look, I'm not going to worry about anybody else. I'm just going to do my part. And I'm going to do what I've always done, which is contribute to the growth of martial arts, which has been my path for the last 30 years.
But you are. I mean, look, it's a live event production. It's a live event production of fighters. Mm-hmm. The fighters are, it's relatively speaking, a pretty finite resource, especially for elite ones. Mm-hmm. And you are competing for some of them, right? I mean, the whole issue with Rampage Jackson, I know it's a lawsuit. It limits you what you can say, mm-hmm. but that sort of the free agency market, it doesn't move like it used to. Mm-hmm. And then you have guys under your own umbrella, mm-hmm. and we'll see what happens with the courts, trying to go over there and at least temporarily succeeding. So, like, realistically, you say you're focused only on yourselves, and I believe that's the mentality. But in the real world, you're competing for the same resources. That has to lead. I mean, I don't know if it's a zero-sum game, but it kind of approaches it, right?
Well, you know what? I agree with you, and I disagree with you. And the reason I disagree with you is we're going to build them from the ground up too, right? I mean, we're really good at that, and I think we've proven that historically. We've been great star identifiers and great star builders, right? And then we've sprinkled it with the free agent market, and I'll tell you, the free agent market is just now starting to open up, and you'll see some more guys wanting to shop around. Will we
see some real defections? Phil Davis, I know, is a defection, but my understanding is UFC didn't necessarily make him much of an offer in reply. What I mean is somebody who they really want to keep. Do you really think in the next year we'll see a defection like that?
I think that you will, and I think that at the end of the day, there's not going to be any free agent that we can afford. And if it's the right guy, and not everybody's the right guy, we're looking for a certain athlete. And if you're the number one fighter in the world, but you might not be that exciting of a fighter or whatever, maybe we're not that interested. But if you're a guy that can move our TV ratings and move our TV needle and our attendance ratings, then we're going to have a conversation.
So what does Phil Davis do for you in that regard? Because I think some would say super athlete, decorated college career,
right.
Looks like Hercules on the scale,
right.
Maybe not the most exciting guy on earth. So right. What is the value add of Phil Davis?
Well, you'll see after we announce tomorrow night.
What will I see?
You'll see an announcement.
All right.
I can't tell you, top secret.
All right, but in terms of like you believe by what? How is there a number in mind about how many guys you want to sign from the top down? Is there like a figure you're looking for?
No, there's really not. I mean, to me, the free agents are going to pop up, and believe me, especially after the Reebok deal, the phone's been ringing, right? So the phone's ringing, people saying, hey, and I said, look, I can't even talk to you right now. When you're a free agent, then you give me a call. When you're, before that, I don't want to get involved in any kind of, issues with you. But in the meantime, we're going to keep building our guys from the ground up, and we will. Come on, we got Spike TV. Every not every Friday, but our fights are on Friday or sometimes Saturday, and we're going to build these guys on Spike TV, and they're going to be Spike TV fighters. And so I feel really good. Like if we didn't have a TV deal, I mean, look at it this way: when we had Showtime, right? We built stars. Strikeforce built stars on Showtime in 20 million homes. You can't tell me we're not going to be able to build stars in 100 million homes. We're going to be able to do it.
And you had success with Tito versus Bonner, which I want to get to in just a second. Mm-hmm. One small question that keeps coming back to me that I hear from fans all the time, so I'll just ask you. Mm-hmm. Everyone sort of says, okay, look, Tito versus Bonner kind of changed things. And certainly the tentpole events have produced the ratings, I think, commensurate with Spike's expectations. Mm-hmm. But the ones that are like in between, there was a belief when Rebney was running the organization, they were going week after week after week, literally 8 weeks in a row. And you're thinking, this is just, okay, I can see why these don't pull in the ratings. Mm-hmm. But it turns out that spacing them doesn't really improve it either.
Yeah.
Is is that a disappointment that you can't, even when you space them out, the non-tentpole events, they don't do better ratings than when Rebney was pulling?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you look at our overall rating, combined, we've definitely moved up. And, those sometimes fall. I think we're victim to other sports programming and other things that are going on. I know that, I think the rating that we did with the 5-something, I mean, that was because, look, we had NBA Finals, right? So people have other choices. They're watching other stuff, But I think at the end of the year, we'll have a much better understanding of where that rating is. And you know what? The tentpole events, to me, are going to drive big ratings, right? And we're going to do big events, big productions. And then the fights in between, it's our job to put on great, big fights even on those fights that people want to see. And so that's going to be our task.
How much of that is still like left over from what the old regime created? You still had some deals where you had to go to certain casinos that where you had to just book through, and
there's a lot,
and you can't change a roster overnight. Rome's not built in a day. So how much of that is just the lagging inability to change that?
There's definitely some crossover. And you know what? If you think about it, I mean, I came on a year ago, right? And we did a fight. I came on July we did a fight, and then we went on a 10-week run, right? And so then we did the Tito Ortiz fight. So it wasn't really till after the Tito Ortiz fight I could start planning, for what this is going to start shaping like. So if you think about what we've accomplished in 6 months, that's really the report card is after that, or the Tito fight on. Because before that, it was really like, moving offices, changing staff, opening the San Jose office, going on the road for 10 weeks. I mean, going on the road for 10 weeks, believe me, that's a challenge. I'm like, how do you guys do this? It's this, they're going from city to city, city. It's like a rock and roll tour. I guess. But I just felt like, look, we got to take a step back to take a step forward, and we got to make these events bigger and more meaningful and put on bigger fighters. And I think that, that's what you're seeing now. And the tentpole really is the future of this company.
So the Tito versus Bonner fight, first part of the question, did you know it was going to, I mean, you had confidence, you made it the main event, so you were building around it. A, did you know it was going to reach those kinds of numbers? And B, is it both a blessing and a curse? Because what it seemed like from our vantage point, and again, it's limited, but it's the one we have in the media, it seemed like once you hit that, the UFC said, okay, well, they can get good ratings with guys who, are either we cut or too old by our standards or whatever the case may be. They can repurpose them for pretty good effect. We need to sign all the free agents.
Right. Holding on longer, maybe. Like guys that maybe would have gotten cut after a couple losses, they're hanging on to, right? Hey, that's fine. Do your thing. And how I feel is like, look, Tito versus Bonner it's like a painting, right? The canvas is completely empty. It's how we paint this picture. And that's really what it comes down to is, are we able to paint the picture between our digital programming, our content, and all of our countdown programming, and make you interested as a fan to tune in? And the answer is yes, because you know what? We were able to do that. We've proven on the stats that we can do that. And the British invasion, I think we did it again. And this fight, I think will have the potential to do some really big numbers. And basically, it was a fight that should have happened. It didn't happen, and we've rekindled that spirit behind this fight and painted the picture through all of the assets that Spike TV and Viacom can bring to the table, and made this an interesting matchup. Yesterday I was looking, CNN had Ken Shamrock on the front page of the homepage. You think they give that space to MMA fighters in general? I don't see it.
No, they don't.
I mean, it crosses over to a mainstream audience. And that's really what our goal is like to take this fight and make people want to see it. And I think we've done it.
Even the most cynical observer would probably say, okay, Tito versus Bonner, Kimbo versus Shamrock. Me, Mr. Cynical Observer, I can say these are going to do good ratings. Okay. But they would have another response. They would say, number one, what is the quality control there? Because you literally have, I talked about this about Kimbo yesterday. The combined age of the main event participants on Friday is 92. Now, that's sort of phony math, but illustrative in its own way. And the second part is, we talk about the future of Bellator, which we'll now transition into, but it feels like we're going backward a little bit, at least with the main event. You talk about building guys from the ground up, and again, Rome's not built in a day. But what is your response to those criticisms?
And not in 6 months either.
Right. What is your response to those criticisms that you're essentially repurposing things that happened in the glory days and making that your crown jewel?
Well, here's the thing. Sometimes you have to take a step back to move forward, right? And if that's what they want to call it and label it, and I can generate 2 to 3 million eyeballs on this fight, and they're going to tune in and watch Spike TV and watch our undercard fighters fight, like Pitbull fighting Weichel. I mean, that's going to be an amazing fight. And to see Bobby fight, to see Campos fighting Chandler, sorry. So I think that that's okay. To me, that's okay because they brought him in, and you know what? They'll get to see all of it, and we'll have something for everybody. If you're a hardcore fight fan, you'll tune in because you want to see those guys fight. You want to see Corrales fight against Daniel Strauss. There's a kid that's 14-0, tough kid, and he had no problem fighting Strauss. He said, you know what? Let's do it. I want to test myself, and let's get it on. And so we'll have something for everybody. You want to see Kimbo fight? My son wants to see Kimbo fight more than he wants to see any of those other guys.
It's true. My brother wants to see Kimbo fight too, but I'm asking you as a promoter that it's not a sustainable strategy, is it? To simply dig into the bag of what's there, and because you have such a powerful platform, say, well, we'll just put it on there. No, in a perfect world, that wouldn't be your first choice, would it?
No, because here's the thing: is that look, we will have other fighters so that we can build those matchups into mega fights, but. And one thing, any MMA company right now is finding out it takes a long time to build a fighter's brand, right? And so that's what the thing is like, people that want to see Kimbo versus Ken is going to cast a little bit bigger net than, this guy versus this guy that maybe only the hardcore fans know. And so that's really what it is. It's like, look, I don't mind doing these big fights, and the undercard fights are going to resonate with the hardcore fans, and hopefully those eyeballs will become fans of those fighters that we're putting on underneath the main event.
So let's talk about where Bellator is headed. Now, you hinted at the beginning of the conversation that international was sort of a big push. Is that going to be noticeable in 2016? I guess lay out, if we have this conversation in a year from now, what will be the next set of changes that folks will be easily able to identify as the next stage of evolution in Bellator's growth?
Well, you'll see an announcement tomorrow that you'll see some of the stuff that we're going to be doing. But as far as
big picture stuff, though,
the nuts and bolts of it is, look, we're going to increase our amounts of shows that we're going to do every year, and we're going to increase the tentpole events, and then we have deals all around the world, and several networks have reached out to us, said, hey, please come here and promote. So we're trying to work out some deals with some of the networks over there, but especially Channel 5, being owned by Viacom, and they just launched Spike UK, which Bellator is on there, and it's getting great ratings. But eventually we'll go there because that's part of the family, and they're going to support us, and we're going to let it play out for maybe another 6 months to 8 months, maybe even a year. Let Bellator just air there for a year, and then go. And so. We have opportunities all over the world that we're going to, pick and choose which ones we'll go first. But I think that we have a fantastic deal with Fox Sports Latin America, which they're very supportive. I was down in Mexico City.
No one knows anything about that deal. How was that going?
You know what? I'll tell you. I'll send you some pictures. It's unbelievable. And I didn't even know. I went down to Mexico City and went to their studio, and we brought Tito Ortiz, and we did all these interviews. They have like an ESPN Sports Center set for Bellator there, and they do a show every Friday, promoting the next show, wrapping up the old shows, doing just all these different like a magazine show basically, and when I went there, I was blown away at what the commitment level was with Fox Sports Latin America behind MMA, and these guys all knew Tito. They all knew all the guys. I mean, they're very knowledgeable, asked a lot of great questions. And Tito did probably 10 interviews on 10 different shows on Fox down there, which is ironic. It's on Fox down there, right? So that's, to me, it's a little bit ironic. But this sport is going through the peaks and valleys here, but internationally it's exploding, and you know that. You saw it down in Mexico. So. that's going to be part of our future as well. I think we'll be down in
within
Latin America?
within 2016.
Yes.
A live show in Latin America in
Yeah,
2016.
yes, and I think you'll see.
In Spanish speaking or Portuguese speaking?
It might be one of each.
Wow.
And then the UK just makes so much sense because of our partners and the ownership group owning.
And Canada gets nothing, huh?
You know what? Canada is a great fight market, and we should really start looking for some more talent up there because we have a couple of Canadian fighters, but I think they would enjoy it more if we had a lot more Canadian fighters.
So let's put a bow on this, if we can. You talked about having, you have similar visions and aims of UFC, but you try to say, I'm doing my own thing, we're doing our own thing, we're separate from them. Okay, cool. But if you're an MMA fan and you watch UFC, and now they're watching this interview and they're listening to you, the world's biggest Steph Curry fan right here, what would you say is the value add of Bellator? Why should an MMA fan who already gets a huge chunk of their MMA viewing needs satisfied by UFC turn because from their perspective, what they tell me is like, why am I going to watch Kimbo versus Shamrock? I see guys who are top 10 in the world, top 5 in the world all the time. This isn't the same kind of thing. So what is the value add of Bellator?
Well, that's the question you're saying about Kimbo and Ken. That's the fan that is going to tune in anyway, and that's the fan that's going to watch everything, right? That's a hardcore fan. That's this kind of market right here, right? That's why, when I say this is not baseball, this is not football, that's because you're talking about the niche market and being in the industry as a reporter or journalist, that's what you focus on. But I'm looking at a bigger picture and then want to cast a bigger net than what you're looking at every day. So to me, it's a little different. I'm looking to cast a general audience to come back to MMA because I think we lost some fans, including my son, along the way somewhere. And these type of events will bring those guys back and then hopefully re-engage them to become fans of not just Bellator, which is free, by the way, on Friday nights, and that's a big differentiator, right?
It's true.
And say, hey, our biggest fights are on free. You can tune in on Spike TV on Friday nights at 9 p.m. and it doesn't cost you a dime. And you get to watch some, amazing fights, amazing production, and don't have to pay for it. So, but I'm trying to cast a bigger net, and that's really what it comes down to: is bring more fans back to mixed martial arts through the Bellator vehicle, and being on Spike TV and being on different countries around the world. It's something that I think that right now it's not being done in the sense that like number one is fighting number two, but you know what? Maybe some people don't care, And you might not look at it like that, but
I know the perspective.
Okay, because I've seen some ratings, So I'm looking at it more like, look, this is an entertainment property. We're going to have fights that fans want to see. We're going to have fights that the general public want to see. And we're going to have fights that are the hardcore fights, like what we explained earlier. It's like, to me, that's a great formula because to have a little bit bigger net will bring in different eyeballs. And that's really what we're going to accomplish.
Scott Coker, best of luck to you with Bellator 138, and maybe in a year we'll have a similar but a different kind of conversation as well.
No, thank you very much.
For your time.
Thanks.